911. What's the address of your emergency?
I don't know. I'm on Avoca Street. I need someone right now.
You think your best friend is dead?
In the quiet streets of Dubuque, Iowa, neighbors were jolted awake one winter morning by the sound of sirens cutting through the still air. It was January 5th, 2024. At first glance, it seemed like any other domestic disturbance call. Nothing unusual for police in a Midwestern town. But what responding officers walked into that day would leave even the most seasoned investigators shaken. Inside a modest home on the outskirts of the city, the scene was pure chaos. Blood was splattered across the floorboards, streaked along walls. The smell of copper hung thick in the air. And in the back bedroom, officers discovered the body of 46-year-old Jennifer and Dazey. Jennifer's injuries were brutal, almost ritualistic. Her face and head bore deep lacerations, her neck nearly unrecognizable from the trauma. Even more disturbing, 2 of her fingers had been severed. Nearby, the family's dog lay lifeless, killed in the same violent spree. But it wasn't just the brutality of the crime scene that unsettled police. It was what, or rather who, they found in the home. In the living room, lying on the floor and smeared with blood, was Jennifer's 29-year-old son, Tyler Dazey, naked, disoriented, his body streaked with scratches and bruises. When officers tried to restrain him, he mumbled something strange, something that made no sense in the heat of the moment. Tyler insisted that his mother had been practicing witchcraft against him. The word sent a chill through investigators. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. It wasn't a random act of violence. Tyler wasn't talking about money or drugs or rage. He was talking about witches. Jennifer's death had instantly become more than just a homicide. It was a story dripping with the echoes of medieval superstition. Except this time, it wasn't happening centuries ago in Salem, Massachusetts. It was unfolding in modern-day Iowa. Tyler insisted that his mother had been practicing witchcraft against him. To understand the weight of what happened, you need to know who Jennifer Dazey was. Friends described her as a kind, hard-working woman, a quiet presence who kept to herself but cared deeply for her family. She wasn't wealthy. She wasn't famous. She lived an ordinary life, until the rumors of witchcraft twisted her world upside down. And then there was Tyler, her only son. To neighbors, he was polite enough but withdrawn, someone who struggled to hold down steady work. Over the years, cracks began to show. Strange behaviors, bursts of paranoia, whispers that he wasn't quite stable. Investigators later pieced together that Tyler's mental health had been spiraling. His thoughts grew more erratic, his suspicions more bizarre. By the time January rolled around, he had convinced himself that his mother wasn't just his mother. She was a witch, and she was casting spells on him. Back at the scene, detectives documented everything. Blood patterns told a story of prolonged violence. The missing fingers raised questions. Was it symbolic, or simply savage rage? The family dog's death painted a picture of complete loss of control. But perhaps the most haunting detail came from Tyler himself. As he was led from the home, he didn't cry out for his mother. He didn't plead innocence. He muttered about dark powers, about spells, about being cursed. For detectives, this was only the beginning. A son who claimed witchcraft drove him to murder, a mother brutally slain, and a community left reeling. But how did whispers of magic, superstition, and fear evolve into a real-life bloodbath? And what chilling words would Tyler deliver in court that left everyone stunned? Tyler Dazey wasn't always the man police found that night. To neighbors, he was the quiet son who still lived at home. To Jennifer, his mother, he was her child, troubled but hers. Yet, over the months leading to July 2025, people around them began to notice a change. Tyler's moods grew darker. He rambled about unseen forces, about enemies no one else could name. And then, the word witchcraft started spilling from his lips. He claimed spells were being cast against him, that his own family might be involved. For those who dismissed it as delusion, it was unsettling but not shocking. For Jennifer, it was dangerous. Friends remembered conversations where Tyler spoke of cleansing the home. He wrote disturbing notes, rambling accusations that his mother was conspiring with witches, poisoning his food, cursing his sleep. On social media, vague posts hinted at paranoia. He isolated himself more and more, refusing help. Police would later confirm that Jennifer had tried to intervene, but Tyler wasn't open to treatment. The walls of their home became a cage of suspicion, his fear turning inward, festering into rage. By July, his grip on reality was threadbare, and he seemed convinced that witchcraft wasn't just a belief, it was war. Investigators pieced together how that paranoia spilled into violence. Jennifer's body told the story. Defensive wounds across her arms, deep lacerations on her hands. Her fingers severed as if he tried to silence her ability to cast. It wasn't just a killing, it was ritualistic in its brutality. In the living room, the family dog lay dead, stabbed multiple times. For police, this detail screamed symbolism. Dogs, in folklore, are said to sense evil spirits. To Tyler, in his spiral, perhaps the dog was an ally of the so-called witches. Or maybe he saw it as a guard he needed to eliminate before confronting his mother. Either way, the carnage was personal, chaotic, and chillingly deliberate. When officers entered that night, Tyler was naked, his skin smeared, his eyes darting with manic energy. He spoke of witches, of needing to stop them. He claimed his mother wasn't his mother anymore. Officers described his tone as detached, almost calm, like he had already accepted the horror of what he'd done. At one point, he even asked if the police themselves were under spells. They subdued him quickly, but the strangeness didn't stop at the arrest. It only deepened. Inside the interrogation room, the mood was surreal. Tyler sat slouched, sometimes muttering under his breath, sometimes staring blankly at the wall. Detectives asked him basic questions. What happened? Why did you kill her? His answers shifted. At times, he blamed shadowy intruders. At others, he admitted she was a witch. One investigator pressed harder. Do you realize your mother is dead? Tyler's chilling reply, she's not dead, she's free. That phrase, written later in the police report, would haunt even the seasoned detectives. It suggested he wasn't just denying reality, he was recasting it entirely. The more they pressed, the more Tyler's story twisted. He claimed his mother had been replaced by an imposter. He said the real Jennifer had been gone for weeks, that he was fighting the demon inside her. To investigators, this wasn't just a confession, it was a window into psychosis. They noted his flat tone, the lack of remorse, the way he occasionally smiled when mentioning witchcraft. For police, it was evidence. For prosecutors, it was motive. But for Jennifer's friends and family, it was unbearable. They knew she had loved her son, even through his struggles. To see her reduced to a witch in his mind was almost as cruel as her death. By the end of questioning, detectives had no doubt. Tyler was the killer. His bizarre ramblings, the physical evidence, the blood, it all pointed to one person. But they also saw a man unhinged, trapped in delusion. The question was no longer who did it, but how could anyone descend this far? As they prepared their case, they knew the trial would not just be about murder. It would be about sanity, about belief, about whether witchcraft, or at least the fear of it, could drive a son to slaughter his own mother. The case of Tyler Dazey didn't move quickly. Prosecutors faced a difficult task: prove deliberate murder in the face of clear delusion. Tyler's defense pushed for incompetency, arguing he was too mentally unstable to understand reality. For weeks, court filings debated his state of mind. The question wasn't whether Tyler killed Jennifer. The question was whether he could be held accountable for it. Psychiatrists testified that Tyler was severely mentally ill. He exhibited paranoia, hallucinations, and delusions of witchcraft. But prosecutors argued that his actions showed calculation, killing the family dog first, targeting his mother's hands, then staging his story for police. To them, this wasn't random. It was ritual. It was intent. Family members and neighbors testified to Tyler's decline. They recalled his mutterings about curses, his angry outbursts, his obsession with spells. A chilling picture emerged. A man convinced his mother was something evil, and that he was chosen to destroy her. Jurors shifted uneasily as transcripts of his interrogation were read aloud. "She's not dead. She's free." The defense painted Tyler as a victim of his mind, incapable of distinguishing fact from fiction. But prosecutors reminded the jury that Jennifer suffered. She fought back. Her injuries proved she struggled against her son's attack. This wasn't the act of someone lost in fantasy. It was the brutal killing of a defenseless woman. At one point in court, Tyler broke his stillness with a bizarre phrase. As deputies escorted him out, he turned to the judge and said, "Always a pleasure." Gasps filled the room. That eerie smile, those words, they rattled even the hardened court staff. For many, it was a reminder that beneath the insanity, Tyler seemed disturbingly aware of the chaos he'd caused. In the end, the jury returned a verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. Tyler Dazey was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The courtroom was heavy with grief. Jennifer's friends wept quietly. Her family expressed relief that justice had been served, but sorrow lingered. No sentence could undo what had been done. In the aftermath, the community struggled to reconcile the horror. Neighbors whispered about the Witchcraft murder, a phrase that made headlines across the state. But beneath the sensational label was a deeper tragedy. A mother who loved her son, a son consumed by fear and delusion, and a life stolen by paranoia. Jennifer Dazey's story is a chilling reminder that sometimes the darkest monsters aren't born of folklore. They're born in the mind, festering until the line between fantasy and reality is gone.